Hi guys, welcome to this week's episode of the Switched On Streams podcast with myself, Brennan Hoof, and I believe it's that way. It might be the other way because Stu's recording this week.
You got it.
That's Pomster.
G'day.
I thought we'd get straight into it this week rather than beat around the bush a little bit. So we want to apologise first off for last week's recording. Everything went wrong. You can imagine the worst things to happen. They all happened. My computer crashed. We lost sound. Discord crashed. Our recording devices crashed. All at the same time. And yeah. Luckily, we decided that we were both going to record, and we had some sort of recording to actually put something out. Unlike, what was it, about 3 weeks ago when we just didn't have any sound.
Yeah.
On my end.
Yeah.
So we've taken a few precautions there to make sure we can get around that. One thing I want to address. I've been going after a new platinum this week. It's for a game called Little Big Workshop.
Yeah, I noticed you've been playing that.
It's time consuming. The time just disappears on you. But it's glitchy. Real glitchy.
Right.
And the longer the game goes, the glitchier it gets.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, your workshop stays open for so many days. And as each day goes by, the more glitchier it gets. And I'm at, like, I think I got to about 365 days, which is a trophy for. And I was probably glitching once every hour and a half to 2 hours. I've got to 420 days, and it's every 20 minutes the game's crashing.
Oh, jeez. Yeah.
And I have like 4 trophies left to get.
Oh, that must be painful. What's the autosave like?
Oh, that's the problem. Sometimes it crashes because it's auto-saving.
So how much progress do you lose?
So far, there's been a couple of times I've lost maybe 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah, that sucks.
And most of the time it's only been a couple of minutes because I've been manually saving, but then it's crashed twice when I've manually saved as well and corrupted the save data.
Right.
Luckily, it's not like it used to be when corrupt data gets saved and like it was just gone.
Mm-hmm.
The PS5 is managing to like fix it, create a new save data out of the old save data. So luckily I haven't lost anything yet, touch wood.
Yeah, and I assume you have auto upload to the cloud on for your save files.
I believe so.
Good thing to check.
Yeah, I really should check that.
Given that's happening a lot.
I know I did have it turned on. I know for some games it stopped working, but that might have been a file clash situation.
I find on the PS5 that a lot of my save files just randomly corrupt themselves. It's usually the PS4 games that are on the external hard drive.
Yeah.
But they're able to be restored, and they're usually restored in the background while the PS5 is in rest mode, and then you get a notification saying that that's happened. I imagine that's more of an issue with just external hard drives than it is with any of the PS5's firmware.
Yeah. I haven't had that issue, but one I have had, and it's been an issue since I put the PS5 in, sorry. With all the updates that it was doing for the games on the hard drive, it would come up like all these notifications. I've still got them sitting there in my downloads, and it's like no game available, or like no data available, or it gets to like 99% and then it just stops.
Yeah, right.
And there's no way to start it or continue it or anything like that. And they just sit there in the downloads. I'm like, what the hell? That's something I've got to look into, and I just never have because, like, chances are I'm probably not going to play half of these games, but you know, want to keep my copies of them.
Yeah.
So, with last week's corruption of the podcast, we obviously didn't do a bracket for 1995. So I was going to do a little recording and add it on, and I thought, you know what, it's not the same. So we'll just do it at the start of this week's, and then we'll go straight into 96. Obviously, you weren't available to do stuff during the week because you're away with your other job. So we'll go straight into 1995's bracket. Some notable releases and things that happened in 95. Obviously, we had the PlayStation releasing in USA and Europe. The Sega Saturn released in the USA. And it was the very first year for E3. Obviously, we haven't seen it for a couple of years now. But, yeah, I mean, I didn't realise it went that far back. I probably should have. I think I remember seeing it when I was in high school, or secondary school as we called it in the UK.
Yeah.
Around 2001, 2002, maybe 2000, around that time. And sort of made it a kind of a life goal to go one day.
Yeah.
And now we actually have the ability and the means to go, and it's sort of packed itself. But we do have the better alternative to what E3 became towards the end there in Gamescom, and we'll talk a bit more about that very shortly. So as for the notable releases for that year, we had Yoshi's Island, Command and Conqueror, Kirby's Dream Land 2, Rayman, Twisted Metal, Warcraft 2, which is pretty close to my heart, that one, and Sega Rally. Now, do you remember what you picked?
I do. I think I remember what I picked. I think you missed a couple, though.
There is a reason I missed one or two off what I have written down here. And that's because some of them were arcade releases, and stuff like that pop up on console the following year.
Yeah.
So
I believe that I picked Wipeout.
That you did. That's what I've got marked down here anyway. Absolutely fantastic game.
Yeah.
Really showcased the PS1's power early doors. That game.
And I think to a kid at the time, it was just like, wow, what's going on here? You know, you never kind of seen anything like this before.
Yeah.
If you were young and it was, you know, the first time you played a PlayStation, you went round to a friend's place or something and they had a PlayStation, or you got a new PlayStation and Wipeout might be one of the first games that you got on there. It was just like nothing else that you'd done before.
Yeah, and it was, I believe it was one of the games that was on the demo disc that came with the PlayStation.
Yeah, I think it was on like a lot of demo discs back in the day.
As well as, might have also been one of the very first bundles that PlayStation did as well, Wipeout. Another one that I think they did a bundle with that pretty close to my heart. I had a few sleepovers with the boys around the 99, 2000 years playing this game, just absolutely kicking the crap out of each other. And that was Destruction Derby.
Yeah.
Which is my choice.
Yeah.
There was another early game for PlayStation that really showcased what gaming could do on the new CD format. And to be able to see, you know, the cars actually start to deteriorate and stuff like that was amazing to someone, you know, in that time period that was, 11, 12 years old,
Mm-hmm.
that just, absolutely blew my mind.
It seems it seems like nothing special today, but you have to remember back in the day how much of a console's processing power it takes to have a racing game, and there's a
Yeah,
reason that there weren't an awful lot of racing games on home consoles prior to the PlayStation 1, or at least not 3D racing games.
yeah,
Um, and that's it. It takes a surprising amount of even the PlayStation 1's processing power to have that moving environment while the car or the character's moving.
yeah,
And there were some really interesting workarounds that developers came up with back in the day to make those work. Yeah, incredible. There's another game that we might talk about later on in the show that had to come up with some really ingenious workarounds to to have that kind of moving environment working on the PlayStation 1's hardware.
yeah. Um, well, let's move straight into 96's bracket, since we've already
Yep.
smashed in there. Now, I don't think we actually we were talking about this on what we were picking before the show, and I don't actually think we finalized who we were picking. I
Yeah.
th- I think I know
Yeah.
which way we were going. I
I think I'm
think.
fairly sure as well.
Um, all right, so in '96, Battle.net launched, which obviously is Blizzard's launcher and what they use to connect all their accounts for um, all the Warcraft games, World of Warcraft MMO, which then obviously built into later years with the launcher, which we now play everything from Blizzard and a lot of Activision stuff on. The Game Boy Pocket released, and something that I actually only remembered this once I was reading that this happened in '96. Sega World London opened,
Yeah. Wow.
and I completely forgot about this.
Hmm.
Your dad took me to Sega World, took me to London for the day to go to Sega World.
Wow. Wow. Kind of jealous.
And we had this whole day in London. We went on the tube. We went and got like some food. That's about all I remember. And then I remember he took me to Sega World,
Yeah. Yeah.
and we just spent like ages in there, and it was massive.
Hmm.
Like it was 2 or 3 levels. There was a big staircase. There was a big Sonic near the staircase. There was arcade machines everywhere. And yeah, I'd totally forgotten about that experience until I read that '96 Sega World London opened.
Mm.
And I kind of feel like, okay, did he take me so that he could go? Or was it just, a bit of a bonding day for me and him? Because, I don't think we went in '96. I think we went a little bit after that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, you might have been about a year or two old, so it might have
Hmm.
been a bit of a me and him bonding time,
Yeah.
after you were born sort of thing. But yeah, that's a nice little memory to go back to. Um, I know we spoke a couple of weeks ago about what the best year for gaming was, and we were debating on whether it was this year or 2017. 1996 is a really good shout for the best gaming year of all time.
Yeah, yeah, we had a really hard time picking between this list.
Uh, like, obviously, we don't go through every game that was released that year. We pick out the notable mentions, the ones that mean something to us, and obviously, then we're picking off that.
Yeah,
Um,
it's important to mention that our notable mentions aren't always the list of the absolute best games. Sometimes it's
yeah.
just the ones that we have nostalgia for and loved playing as kids, you know.
Now, a couple of games on this list I'm gonna single out. I won't name them off yet, but can we just appreciate how much hard work these guys put into making games back then? Because some of these games had games released the year before, and then the sequels were out this year.
Mm.
And don't get me wrong, like I know as time goes on, we're obviously getting bigger and bigger games, and they're taking longer and longer. That's fine. But some of these games were pretty big.
Oh yeah.
Like, and yet, just the following year.
Yeah,
And you could go back to the Atari days, I suppose, and go, well, you know, was it the infamous ET game?
mm-hmm.
Like I think they put that out in like 2 weeks or something like that.
Yeah. The game development process has changed enormously. Back then, so much of your time as a developer was spent on, you know, the engine and the physics of the game. Nowadays, so much of that is streamlined. Developers are either using engine packages that they're buying third party, or that they get open source, or they've got their own in-house engines that they've just been using and refining for years. They spend so much more time these days on like 3D modeling and story writing, art, you know, all of that kind of stuff. Back in the day, because they were working with sprites and you know, very low polygon models, there was a lot less time spent on that kind of side of things. So but still, making and releasing games, you know, year after year, or sometimes less than a year, back in that day, is pretty incredible.
Well, let's get into the notable mentions for this year. We have Revelations Persona, one of the games we were just talking about, Command and Conquer Red Alert, Duke Nukem 3D, Civilization 2, Super Mario RPG, and can I just note that the remake of that is coming out this year, and I'm kind of excited for it. Super Mario game in the style of an original Final Fantasy with the turn-based action. It's going to be fantastic. Quake, Super Mario 64. I can't believe it's been that long since Super Mario 64 came out.
Yeah. I mean, time flies, doesn't it?
I mean, that game looked fantastic on the Nintendo 64. It really did. Mortal Kombat Trilogy, Tekken 2, Dead or Alive. Big year for fighting games right there. Elder Scrolls 2 Daggerfall, Crash Bandicoot, Twisted Metal and Destruction Derby sequels. Both had their second games come out this year. When? I know Twisted Metal came out the year before. So it was 2 years between Twisted Metal games. Is that right? That can't be right. No, Twisted Metal came out in 95.
Yeah.
As the Destruction Derby.
I think
Holy crap.
I think it was on our honourable mentions for 95.
Yeah, it was. I just didn't see it on there when I looked back at it on my notes. But of course, I picked Destruction Derby for the year before. Mario Kart 64. Like, wow.
Yeah, I think some of these games are really hard done by, just given the fact that we can only pick 2 per year.
Yeah.
And that those games happen to not be the ones that, you know, had the biggest impact on us, but that we still would recognize as being kind of legendary games and, you know, crucial to video game history.
There's still one more. Still one more that I haven't read off. That I left till last.
Mm-hmm.
Because between what I picked and this, it was a very tough choice. In fact, between the one that you've picked, the one that I picked, and this was a very tough choice. And that's Tomb Raider.
Lara Croft Tomb Raider, yeah.
That was... I had this whole pack. I'm pretty sure it was Tomb Raider. I'm pretty sure it was the first Tomb Raider. It might have been the second one now that I think about it. Because I don't think they would have done it for the first one. But I got this like big box, and it was like this for my birthday, and it had the PC game version of it in there, T-shirt, poster, the lot, and it was fantastic. Like I was over the moon with it.
Mm-hmm.
I think installing it on the PC that we had at the time almost broke the PC because I think it was too large. Back in the days when you still had to have the CD in to actually play PC games.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like I so hard to pick, so hard to pick. But I'm gonna go first this week because I feel like I've got more to add to what you picked than what I
Okay.
do on what I've picked.
Yeah.
Now, for those of you who can see, it's a bit blurry, but over there. And oh, hang on, how am I doing this? The complete wrong way. Over here, you can probably guess that my pick for 1996 is Pokemon Red, Green, and Blue. Now, a lot of people don't realise this, but here in Australia, in the UK, America, and most of the Western countries, we got Red and Blue. That's how we know the original Pokemon games. When they released in Japan, they were Pokemon Red and Green. Like, and that's why when we got the later versions, the remakes, when I think we're in the Game Boy Advance SP era, it was Fire Red and Leaf Green. That's why we got them that way round, and not, I don't even know what they would have called it, Water Blue. So yeah,
Sky Blue.
yeah, but it doesn't really work because it's Fire Red because it's the fire types, Leaf
Yeah.
Green because it's the
Yeah,
grass
yeah.
type. So it would have been, I mean, they could have been overly sexual with it and gone Squirter Blue. What a name for a game.
Well, I mean,
Pokemon Squirter Blue.
as we've talked about with some of the Pokemon on previous podcasts, you know, I wouldn't put that beyond them.
Yeah, well, that's true. Probably a little bit out there considering they're all supposed to be 11 years old in the game.
Yeah.
But, yeah. So I had a... I wasn't huge on it when it very first released. But, like, I was already in there with, like, starting to feel the buzz around the games coming out, the card collection coming out, all that sort of stuff. And by the time I actually got my hands on the game, like I just fell in love with it. I still have Pokemon in my Pokemon home that I have from those original games.
Yeah, right.
And I've got the Pikachu Yellow game still sitting over there with my Pokemon game collection. Which I want to get them all, but I don't want to play the like over the top prices.
Yeah.
So like the games I have over there, I've bought either at release or I found at a car boot sale, like when I was younger.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I paid actually Nan paid like $10 or $20 for that Pokemon Yellow game in. It would have been. I can't remember if it was it might have been 96 when we came over, but I don't think it released then. I don't think Yellow came out to the year after, so it would have been 2001, 2002 when we came out from the UK.
Mm-hmm.
Nan woke me up. She's like, "Come on, we're going to a car boot sale." Perfect. Me and Nan used to do that every Sunday morning in the UK.
Yeah.
We'd get up at like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, go down the car boot sale to find all the best bargains. Used to get some absolutely awesome Christmas and birthday presents out of it. I remember having I had the Ghostbusters fire station. It's not about this tall.
Mm-hmm.
Nan picked it up off a car boot sale. Hid it in her bedroom under a towel.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, I remember when we left the UK and we did a car boot sale to sell all of our stuff. I remember I had this robot. I can't even think what the make of it was, but it was pretty big. It probably came up to about your waist height, and
Yeah.
it was incredible what you could program it to do back in
Yeah, I
the
remember you
day.
having that.
It was amazing. And I think we'd sold it for like 10 quid or something. I was devastated. Absolutely devastated.
I remember doing a car boot sale with the boys one year, and like we're just trying to raise money to go on a shopping trip, really.
Mm-hmm.
Go spend the day in one of the cities. And I sold a couple of PS1 games, and someone had sort of said something to me, and they're like, "Oh, you don't happen to have this, do you?" I said, "I actually do have it at home. Here's my name. Here's my number. Give me a ring, and I'll sell you it." And it was Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 or 2, I think it was.
Right.
So anyway, there was these two girls, and they ended up ringing me like 2 days later, and coming and picking it up from the house that we were at in Airedale Road.
Yeah.
And I reckon I would have been 14 at the time. And said to him, there you go, there's the game, took the money, said the cheater in there, blah, blah. And about 2-3 years later, I ended up meeting this girl at a swimming pool, ended up dating her for about 6 months. And I took her took her home, and she goes, "I've been here before." I went, "You what?" She goes, "Yeah, I bought a video game off someone here." I was like, "That was me." So just crazy how these little stories that are entwined into certain video games and stuff like that. Yeah. But anyway, before we get too more sidetracked, your pick.
Yes. Well, my pick is from a game series that both of us love, both of us grew up playing, and had a massive impact on both of us. I think a really defining title in the horror genre of video games, and that is Resident Evil.
Really sort of kick-started. I'm not sure if it was the first, but quite possibly was the first.
Should also mention, if there are any listeners in Asia, that you know it as Biohazard.
Yes. Although I think they're rebranding it now.
I think so. But yeah,
I
for years since the beginning.
I think the last one was still Biohazard.
Yeah.
But I think they are, from here on out, they're going to be calling it Resident Evil. But yeah, no, I was looking around before, because I'm like, oh, crap, that's one thing I don't have in here. Is a little Resident Evil sort of display.
Yeah, that'd be amazing.
And I do have some Resident Evil memorabilia collection stuff kicking around in a few boxes somewhere. But yeah, as you said, like it holds a dear place in our heart. We used to play it, I think, on a Saturday morning. It's usually on a Friday night. I was watching wrestling when we went round to your dad's, and spent the Friday nights there. Yeah,
I think I was maybe 4 years old or 5 years old when when I first played through that. And at first it was just watching you and Dad play it, and then I got into playing it myself, and I was probably way too young, but that opening cutscene with the chopper and the dogs charging at them, and they run into the mansion, it's so memorable.
And I'll never forget the bit when you're walking through the hallway for the second time on the right hand side of the mansion as you're looking into the hallway. When the dogs jump through that fucking window, I shit myself. I was like,
100%. Yeah.
And the giant spiders always creep me out.
I just like the cutscenes of the doors opening every time you went into a new room. It's just like so ominous, and you didn't know what was going to be on the other side, even if you'd been in that room before, because it could be different a second time.
Yeah, it was a nice little way to do a loading screen.
And then the camera
stairs always annoyed me though.
Yeah, the stairs. The camera angles, you find them annoying now because you expect to be able that either a camera to follow you or for you to be able to dynamically move the camera around. But actually the camera kind of added to the suspense sometimes because you didn't quite know what was around the corner.
Yeah, and if you went into a certain place and there was a zombie coming from off camera, like you'd sort of be like, crap, am I aiming at it? Am I not?
Yeah.
And they used it to their advantage. I'm pretty sure there's a scene where you go to walk off camera and then he sort of, I think it's when you're playing as Jill, not as Chris. Could be the other way around. Might happen for both of them. And she like starts stepping backwards because like there's like 2 or 3 zombies coming at her.
Yeah.
I think that's when you go up the first set of stairs actually, which is on the left-hand side.
Yeah, just off the dining room. And you go through that. Yeah.
Through, round, up the top and up. Yeah, I reckon it's up there because there's a safe room down the bottom.
Yeah.
Staircase, and then you can go that way or that way. That way leads round to like a balcony type situation. Geez, it's been a long time since I played that game. And someone's going to crucify me for my map references there because they're probably completely wrong.
Yeah.
But yeah, look, we both love that game. It's fantastic. And there's a few interesting entries in the Resident Evil franchise, but that one is, I don't think there's ever really been a bad one. But that's up there as the best, the original. Which
I think there have probably been a few bad releases, but I get what you mean.
Look, 6 is 5 was, but you know, let's segue that into a little thing we started talking about before we started recording. I went, well, put the brakes on. Let's talk about that on the podcast.
Yeah.
Remakes versus originals. You were starting to make some good points, and
and you stopped me. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I was about to like just blurt out all this stuff, and I'm like, no, I need that for the podcast.
It's great content.
Yeah. And I guarantee now you won't remember what you said.
I have a good idea.
Yeah. And I probably won't remember what I was going to say, but we were talking about what were we talking about? Remakes, originals. Which one was it?
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, no, you go.
Okay. So basically, we were about to debate, I think, whether or not remakes or remasters ever top the original games, because while they can be, graphically superior, they can run faster, there might even be more, autosave points where there might not have been any autosave at all in the first one. The original title is like the defining thing. It's what made that game successful. And your point was, well, is that a matter of nostalgia that you often think that the original title is better than the remake?
I want to throw one at you.
Go for it.
That you can disagree with it, but seems we're on the topic of Resident Evil. Resident Evil 2 remake.
Yeah, it's a great one to put forward, and it's probably the one that I thought you were going to go with, because the remake of 1 really wasn't anything special.
I felt the remake of 1 was more of a. It wasn't really a remake, was it? Not in the way that
more
of a
remaster.
2, 3, or 4.
Just that the textures were redone, whereas 2 was a proper remake.
They rebuilt those games from the ground up, much like they have with Final Fantasy VII. There's another good one.
Yeah, look, I mean, there's such a long time between the original game and the remake in the case of Resident Evil 2 that there is a gigantic difference in graphics and how it plays, that if you compare them side by side now, it's hard to make a case for the original. But having said that, the remake would never exist if it wasn't for the original game in the first place.
True.
And I think also in the case of Resident Evil 2, there were some very small changes that they made to the story, the opening of the game in particular, that I didn't see the need for. Sometimes with remakes, that it seems like the developers want to, they just get a bit eager to like do something different, and often there's not really any need to.
I think sometimes when you're doing these things, I could be completely wrong on this. One or two things are going to happen that might cause a change. The first one is they see a flaw, something doesn't make sense to them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, like, why does this happen here when it could happen here, and it makes a lot more sense that this is then caused this part.
Yeah.
So I think the bit we're talking about, maybe the truck crash.
Yeah.
Or is that the third one?
No, it is the truck. It's the truck crash. Yeah.
So I think in the original, the truck crash doesn't happen till later in the game, which then cause it happen not later in the game, but not right at the beginning.
I think it is, but I could be wrong.
Is it?
Yeah.
I know the truck crash is what we're talking about, but
yeah.
But anyway,
the service station and the truck crash, I think that's all in the opening cutscene in both. But then there's the after that in the original, it kind of goes into Raccoon City, and there's a bit of a there's a pile-on of cars, and I'm trying to remember this. There's a pile-on of cars, and Leon's kind of, overwhelmed and has to run into the police station.
Yeah.
And I think they changed that in the remake.
Yeah, they did. Because I think he's already in the police station, maybe.
I think he just drives off and gets to the police station, I think. Yeah.
It's been a while since I played either of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there might be some things that don't quite make sense to them now to change it. Another thing might be very much like if you were editing a picture or something like that, you've got to change some stuff from the original story.
Mm-hmm.
As you know, the original writers might not be okay with things or that sort of stuff, or designers. You might want to change some stuff for that. So they're the two scenarios I can see of why they would change bits and pieces. Oh, excuse me. And like I said, the other one that you could throw there to be a different one is Final Fantasy VII. Yeah,
well, the remake has really kind of expanded on the original game now, and they're continuing to add to it with, a sort of with DLC and then a sequel. Yeah.
Well, they've cut the game up into a trilogy.
Yeah. But they're still adding to the story, like it's going beyond what was in the original game.
100%.
Yeah.
But they're able to, the amount that they're allowed to or able to add now with the size of the games and all that. And to be honest with you, I wasn't a fan of Final Fantasy VII on PS1.
Mm-hmm.
I am absolutely in love with the remake. Now, I only played it this year.
Yeah, okay.
As big a Final Fantasy fan as I am, it's a remake of 7. Wasn't a huge fan of 7.
Mm-hmm.
People are going to shoot me for it. So be it. Final Fantasy VIII Forever. So I thought, I'll wait for it to come down to the right price. Never had the time to play it because there was always something else going on. And then it went on the PlayStation Plus, and I went, you know what, I'm gonna give it a shot.
Mm-hmm.
And it might have actually been one of the PlayStation Plus games before it went to the Game Pass style. And I think I had it sitting in there anyway. I might have had the PS4 version or whatever it was.
Yeah,
But,
I think it was a monthly game, and they released after many months of you not being able to get the PS5 upgrade. If you had the one from the monthly games, they finally allowed you to get the PS5 version for free.
And I think that's what swayed me once I got the PS5 version.
Yeah, it was for me as well.
And oh wow, boy did I fall in love with that game.
Yeah, it's really well done. Personally, as a musician, it frustrates me that this soundtrack was not recorded by a live orchestra and is instead computer generated sounds. Where that frustrates me a little bit because it seems like that game was made on a pretty big budget and they should have been able to do that. But it's a small gripe, really.
When did that game come out? I can't remember. 2017?
2017, 2018-ish, I imagine.
Oh, I reckon it's later than that for some reason.
Could be. It could be 2019.
But it would have been in development then.
Yeah.
But I was just thinking maybe COVID was an issue.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, that actually surprises me because Final Fantasy normally do a lot of live recordings with the orchestra and all that sort of
they
stuff.
Absolutely do. I think I remember looking into it at the time, and it was just a studio decision that they didn't think it necessary, and they were kind of convinced enough by the computer generated sounds, which whatever.
Yeah. I did
agree with
listen to a thing with Austin Wintory.
Mm-hmm.
Where he was talking about the new game that he's been working on. I think it's just released, or is it about to be released this week or next week? Crap, what's it called? I've completely forgotten what it was called. I literally had it in my head a second ago. Fallen Gods or something like that.
Right.
And in this game, it's basically like it's a musical, and the choices you make change the songs that are being sung and all that sort of stuff. And
sure,
not a game for everyone, but someone like yourself might actually really enjoy it, being a musician the way you are. And he was talking about. I've completely lost my point. God damn you, ADHD. Oh, I hate when I do this. Normally I'm able to cover it up. Not very well, but able to.
Yeah.
Crap, what was the point we were talking about before I went and lost what the name of the game was?
Like computer generated.
That's
audio.
That's it.
Yeah.
So he was saying that he recorded all this stuff for it, and for most people like myself, I won't be able to tell the difference between computer generated stuff and a live orchestra.
Mm-hmm.
But someone like yourself or him, he can pick it straight away.
Yeah.
Because they know what they're listening for.
So these days, with like VST plugins that you use when you're kind of composing music, a lot of these composers write in this these, they're called digital audio workstation software.
Yeah.
Ableton, your Cubase, all these ones. A lot of music producers use them too. For these plugins that you can use that create computer generated sounds. You basically, a lot of the good expensive paid ones, they actually go out and they record real musicians and then create samples from those real recordings.
Yeah.
So what you're hearing technically is kind of a real person playing that instrument or whatever it might be. But it's then being kind of reformatted, restructured, reused by a computer to create something new, which does sound different. It lacks the kind of nuance of a real human performance. And so, if you're not used to listening to that style of music very often, or you're not really listening out for it, and it's just something that happens in the background, you might not be able to tell the difference, because it does sound like a real violin or a real trumpet or whatever, because it technically is, but it doesn't have the nuance of a real live performance.
Yeah. We are going to move on from this. I do want to quickly look up. I should have done it while you were talking there.
But yeah, just to finish on the point of nostalgia when it comes to these remakes of video games, classic video games and stuff. I generally am in favor of the remakes because it does fix a lot of those playability issues and the kind of increases that we get in graphical performance and stuff nowadays that a lot of people look for. So I'm totally in favor of it. But if we talk about the kind of the pantheon of video games, I think you almost have to go with the original by default, because the remake wouldn't even exist if it weren't for the original.
Stray Gods is the name of the video game. So it'd be definitely worth you going and have a look at. Yep. I slightly disagree. I think there's a nostalgia with the originals that usually the originals are better. But I think there's a fine line there where remakes, remasters come across and they're just that little bit better.
They can be, and yeah, maybe.
But they've got to put the time and effort into them.
They do, absolutely.
GTA trilogy, fuck it off. Give us more Resident Evil remakes.
Yeah.
Give us more of that.
Well, I think they're going to. They've been doing it. They've done 1, 2, 3, 4 now. Style. I assume they'll do 5 at some point.
Redo 1.
Yeah, I mean, doing a proper remake of 1 rather than a remaster would be great. Doing a Resident Evil 1 in the style that they remade Resident Evil 2 or 4 would be amazing. 1. Yeah, it'd be amazing.
Resident Evil 1 in the RE engine.
Yeah.
Give me it all day.
Yeah.
I will replay it over and over and over.
Yeah, I would love it too.
We better move on, otherwise we're going to be here all night, and we do have FIFA night to get to. Why does Discord keep going off? I do not know what is going on.
No idea.
Between Discord going off, my computer decided to go into sleep mode.
We're just going to have to start recording these in person, aren't we, in the future?
I just want to go out the back and just get a shotgun. All right.
Bit worrying.
I shouldn't joke about that stuff.
Yeah.
It is only a joke. Now, we did mention last week's podcast that Monday was supposed to be the deep dive for pro clubs.
Did come a little bit late.
Didn't come out till this morning.
Yeah.
And I just randomly get this notification while I was sorting out the order and everything for the recording that we're doing now. And I went, ooh. So I got it and I watched it and I sent it to you guys. I'm really excited.
Yeah, Yeah, I was
Really excited.
genuinely surprised, I think.
Obviously, we're going from the 10 league system into a 5 league system, which will reset at the end of each season.
Yeah.
But we're getting the playoffs, we're getting a promotion, whole thing. So it's a
No
little bit,
relegation anymore. So yeah,
yeah,
that's
we kind of knew about that,
yeah. I'm not
but
sure
I
about
mean,
the like not having the jeopardy of relegation. As frustrating as it is to be relegated, as we've kind of talked about before, not on the podcast, of course, but as we've had discussions about before with like the Super League,
yeah,
having a promotion and relegation system, the jeopardy and then potential elation of both getting promoted or avoiding relegation, by the skin of your teeth, that can be some of the best moments in football.
yeah.
I felt,
Also be the
as
worst.
a Nottingham Forest fan last season, we second last game of the season beat Arsenal at home to avoid relegation. That was just like an electrifying moment. And we've had it on pro clubs before where we've, avoided relegation when it seems absolutely certain, and we've scored a last minute winner in a game to stay in the division. We're going to be losing some of those moments.
Yeah, but is it going to make us want to play a bit more because we're not so frustrated that we've lost 4
Potentially.
games in a row?
Yeah, potentially. I suppose a season might be a little bit of a throwaway, though, once you know that you've reached a certain point where you're highly unlikely to get promotion, to get to playoffs.
Well, the seasons aren't like they are now, though. It's not like you get a set amount of games. Like
Yeah.
seasons are going to go for 3 or 4 weeks, and
Yeah, I suppose you could still fix it just
you
by
could
playing more games and then winning more of those games.
exactly.
Yeah.
So, like, we could play 200 games. The next month, only play 100, and get to that same point. But obviously, the one thing that they did say: the more we play, the more fans we get. The more fans we get, the bigger stadiums, better players, and stuff like that we're going to be able to get in game, which makes me want to smash the absolute hell out of this in the first few weeks just to get better players,
Yeah,
CPU
yeah,
players.
yeah, 100%. I'm with you on that. In terms of the stadium customization, what they showed in the video looked great, looked really good.
Yeah.
However, I'm a bit worried about the fact that they said that this stadium customization comes in packs. And I'm just a
Yeah,
little bit
I
worried that it
did notice that.
might be limited. There might be like, just like 10 packs that you can unlock, and you can't actually go in and customize individual elements. It's just like a skin that you can get for your stadium, and there's only a limited number of them.
So I thought about it one of 2 ways, or 2 ways that popped into my mind. The first one, microtransactions.
Yeah, possibly.
That worried me.
Yeah.
But then I thought, well, hang on. What if they're putting these into packs, kind of like you get in Ultimate Team, but they're the rewards you're getting at the end of the seasons in the playoffs and all that sort of stuff?
So you're thinking maybe you get like a randomized pack, and you might get tifo, seat colors, different, I don't know, pitch lines or whatever.
Or each season might have its own theme.
Right.
And you get rewards based on that theme for that season. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Kind of like you do with other games like Overwatch and
time will tell, I suppose.
Like
but what they showed in the video did look really good. We should also talk about pre-match cutscenes because they look great.
Yeah, much like we've had over the last couple of years at
with career
the
mode
start of career mode and stuff like that. I can't wait to finally walk out there after scoring 4 goals in a game, and them not focus on you or Blowy on a TIFO and actually talk about me scoring 3 or 4 goals in the previous game.
Yeah, it's all about you.
You don't score goals like I do. You remember a couple of years ago when before Blowy played with us, when it was you, me, and Callum.
Yep.
And there was about, I think, 5 or 6 seasons in a row. It had come down to the last game for either promotion or survival in the league. And it had always come down to me scoring a hat-trick in the final game for us to survive or get promoted.
Right.
And I used to make comments about it going, it's always down to me to score hat-tricks in the last game. So...
But I also know, just to, even this out a little bit, I can think of so many occasions when it's like I've played an absolutely gorgeous through ball, like picked you out, and all you've had to do is get on the end of it with a simple tap in, and it's like,
and I've over the crossbar.
No, that, but even if you put it in, it's, oh, look at me, I'm the best. Here we go.
All about me.
And then,
I've still got to get to the ball.
And then 10 seconds later, it's, oh, and a good pass too.
Yeah. I've still got to do the hard work. I've still got to get to the ball. I've still got to deal with the pressure of putting it in the back of the net.
That's proving my point,
We can't all be Danny Aarons. We can't all just be scoring goals for fun from wherever the park on pro clubs. I saw a video of him earlier. He was playing with Ginge and Mini Minter and all those guys. And the previous week they'd put him at left back and he scored a hat-trick in the one game he played.
Yeah, right.
So he wanted to play up front, and Mini Minter put him in the centre midfield. Scored 8 goals in 3 games.
Yeah.
And as they all said, like, he just, no matter where he plays as a striker.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he just runs up.
Yeah. Was there anything else in there apart from crossplay, which we've already talked about heaps on this podcast before?
Pro Clubs coming to Switch.
Oh,
obviously, they haven't got crossplay, but
yeah,
I mean that's a huge thing for those guys over that play on the Switch system.
Mm-hmm.
We did get a look at how many. I don't know if you noticed it. How many of the play styles we will get?
Yes, yeah.
And it looks like we'll get 6 play styles.
Yeah.
And 2 that we can upgrade, or 2 that we can then have as Game Style Plus.
Yeah.
So in total, you'll end up with 8.
Yeah. And the Playstyles Plus is basically just like an even bigger boost. So with the regular ones, if they give you an extra 10%, let's say the Playstyles Plus might give you an extra 25% or whatever it might be.
They said in there? Turns it up to 11.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to really get stuck in and find out what combination of these play styles are going to work well together.
Yeah, I agree. I do worry that there might be like a meta playstyles plus. Say, for example, years ago, how everyone was pace merchants on pro clubs. You can imagine a situation where the like playstyles plus for like extra pace is just like way overpowered. And they can just run past everyone and you can do nothing to stop them, especially if you've got AI defenders.
Yeah. I never used it. I really should have. I'm an idiot.
Anyway.
But we digress. The next item on our list to talk about. I don't know if you pulled up some stuff to see what was coming. But this coming week, the biggest games festival in the world. Live from Cologne in Germany. We have Gamescom. Now, there's a couple of points. See, there goes Discord again. It's really off-putting when you're mid-sentence.
Yeah.
And you just get this in your ear. And then there's no notification.
Yeah.
Really frustrating. So, a couple of points to make for Gamescom this year, Xbox is going to have its biggest ever booth with over 150 playable games. That is big.
It is, yeah.
One game that isn't going to be playable is Starfield. Does that worry you a little bit?
I mean, it does make me ask the question why, but maybe, let's say, for example, that it's like 2 weeks off being playable, and they're
It comes out the week after.
Yeah, okay. Well, let's say it's like it's very close to being playable, but it really needs like a day one update, as so many developers kind of go that route nowadays. They push it to be kind of published, and it's unfinished, it's got some glitches, and there's going to be a day one patch. Let's just say, for example, the section of the game that they would have used as a demo is one of those that needs to be patched, and they just don't feel that the demo's polished enough and will get kind of panned by people. Then maybe that's a potential reason. But either way, it is a little bit worrying.
I think you're almost on the right track, but I don't think you quite hit the nail on the head on why I don't think it's a problem.
Yeah.
There's so much to do in this game. It's so massive that any demo that they do is going to be half an hour long.
Yeah, but maybe that's
just the tutorial
Mhm.
for building a spaceship or building a hut or flying.
Yeah, maybe it's just not viable to have that in a demo
just don't
situation.
think
Yeah,
it's going to be viable to have a demo without. I mean, everybody's going to want to go there and play it.
I might only get
a week
5-10 minutes each, Yeah.
I just don't think time-wise it's viable. Like, everybody at Gamescom is just going to go straight there. There's going to be queues for hours. Nobody's going to see anything else. I think it's actually really smart by Xbox. But at the same time, if there is any issues with it, and they're not happy with it, they're going to keep it hidden, aren't they?
Yeah, look, you could be right. And yeah, if they know that that game is going to get so many sales regardless, and they don't really need to demo it to get all of those sales, then they are potentially just drawing interest away from other games that they do want to show off.
Yeah, definitely. And they have released a list. I haven't got it pulled up, but one of the games that they have sort of announced that's going to be there that not a lot of information's out there about, that I'm really interested to see is a game called Ava History Untold. It kind of looks like it's going to be a bit of a Civilization, Tropico strategy type game. Just from the little sort of teaser trailer or announced trailer that we got. I'm really interested to see how this game goes. If you haven't had a look at it, go have a look at it. I might try and edit it in here at this point into the video afterwards when I'm doing the editing. But yeah, that game really looks good. Another game that's been announced to be there is Stalker 2, which is the game coming out of the Ukrainian developer that obviously has had a lot of issues with the war that's going on over there. And from what we've seen of this game so far, for an FPS, it looks fantastic. So I'm really excited to see more of that as well. Nintendo's coming back as well after 4 years of being away from Gamescom.
Good to see.
So, do you think they're going to announce anything at Gamescom?
I would imagine so. I don't see why else they would come back unless there was really something to show, you know? Maybe I'm jumping the gun there, but they don't really need Gamescom. Otherwise, I wouldn't have thought. Like, if they've been away for a few years and they don't have anything to show, what's the purpose in going this year? So yeah.
I personally believe that they're not going to announce anything new.
Yeah.
I think they're just going to show off what they've got coming out for the rest of the year.
Yeah, it could be.
I think they're just going to show off.
Just trying to drive up interest for games that have already been announced.
Super Mario RPG. Is it Super Mario Wonder? The other game they've got coming out.
That's what it's called. Yeah.
There's a one of the Luigi Mansion games that's getting a remake as well.
Yeah.
So, like, there's a few games there that they've got coming out on the back end of the year that I think they're just going to try and drum up some hype about those games and showcase those.
Mm-hmm.
But you could be right, because I do have a little inkling. Something tells me that whether it's going to be at Gamescom or whether it's going to be maybe Game Awards at the end of the year, there might be a little hint or maybe a reveal of of the next Switch system. With the rumours that we're hearing that next year is going to be the year that we're going to get it, I think now might be the time to drop that.
Yeah, well, that would be a pretty big announcement.
I don't think we will, but if they do, this is where you heard it first. There's probably fucking 50 million other people out there just saying the exact same thing. But
somehow I don't think we'll get the credit for that.
We said it first. No PlayStation yet again. Obviously, they did this last year, and I think we got a state of play in September.
Yeah, seems like they're kind of throwing their chips behind state of play, behind their own show, you know.
And September, to me, would be a good time for them to do that. You know, that gives them a couple of weeks before Spider-Man comes out. Drum up a bit more hype around that. I think this window here, sort of the end of August, middle of August, 2 months out from Spider-Man releasing, is probably just that little bit too long to start driving up hype for it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it makes sense for Sony to do that. I'd still like them to go. I'd still like them to drop something.
Yeah.
Like, they don't need much, but give us a booth. Let us go play some games.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't even have to take Spider-Man.
No,
but give us something.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree 100%. I think it's silly that they aren't there, you know, like Microsoft can do their own shows and still go and provide a great experience for those who do go. Sony should be doing the same thing.
Definitely. I think. Have you got any other predictions or anything you'd be excited to see?
I mean, this obviously won't be announced there because Sony aren't going to be there. But it's kind of a related topic anyway, given that we were talking about the potential of a Nintendo Switch 2 release. We should probably mention the leaks concerning the PS5 Slim and some other leaks that came out today about a potential PS5 Pro as well.
I think that would come in a state of play next month.
I think
or maybe even November.
Too. Yeah. So for those of you who aren't aware, an Australian developer leaked photos of a supposed dev kit. Dev kits are, you know, like prototype versions of the console that are sent out to developers for them to work on, to run their upcoming games on, to make sure that everything's going to work properly. And yes, an Australian developer leaked photos. It's not clear whether or not they were genuine, but it did seem to corroborate with some other, I think they were computer-generated images of that had been leaked a few weeks prior. And then I think it was earlier today, there were some specs leaked for the supposed PS5 Pro that would come 6 months to a year after the PS5 Slim, with some increases in CPU and GPU power that would apparently allow you to run games in 4K 60. So you wouldn't have to choose between performance and resolution / ray tracing. You'd be able to do it all at 4K 60 in theory. But that is very much a tenuous leak at the moment, as far as I believe.
I did see something about that. Was it last week? That where they was supposedly, whether or not they were the actual specs, but that was what was being talked about coming either in the new Slim version or the Pro version.
And the rumor has been for a long time now that the PS5 Slim will replace the PS5, similar to what they did with the PS4 and the PS3 before that. That there'll be a Slim that replaces the original model, and then potentially a year or so later there might be a Pro version that comes out.
Yeah, I will be holding out for that Pro version.
Yeah, I think so. I've been thinking about buying a second PS5 for a while, but now with these kind of rumors out there, I'm thinking, well, I may as well wait.
One of the best things I ever did was get the PS4 Pro.
Yeah. Although it sounded like a jet engine all the time.
Yeah, but so did the original. Yeah, they were loud, weren't they?
Yeah, they
Remember those FIFA nights, especially when I was using the camera as a microphone, so I didn't have to have the headset on.
Sounded like there was a 747 taking it off out of your living room.
Yeah. Good times. Look, I know there's going to be something. I can't quite put my finger on it, but I know Jeff Keighley obviously is doing opening night live again. He always has something in it up his sleeve. He is. I tell you what it's going to be.
Another prediction.
I think opening night live, big reveal. Death Stranding 2.
Ooh.
And I think that's how Sony are going to do it. So just because Sony aren't going to be there doesn't mean we're not going to get Sony announcements.
Mm-hmm.
Jeff Keighley's got ties with Sony. Not ties, but, has worked with Sony for a couple of announcements and reveals and stuff like that at Opening Night Live and Gamescom. Opening Night Live at Gamescom and the Video Game Awards. So we also know that he's done a few reveals with Kojima. So I think did they announce Death Stranding 2 back in 2018 at the Video Game Awards?
Yeah, right.
Pretty sure it was then. But it was the Video Game Awards just after Death Stranding had come out.
Mm-hmm.
And they announced that he's working on the second one. And then we haven't heard anything else.
Yeah.
And then he goes and signs this deal with Microsoft to do this game over there. That's going to be my prediction. Death Stranding 2.
There you go. A couple of big predictions on this show.
We'll find out.
Tuesday,
opening night live, which will be Wednesday morning. I am going to get up and try and do a live stream to react to it. Try to. If the internet allows me to stream. We're going to try streaming tonight with FIFA. Wish me luck.
Yeah.
I changed everything on my system, and it still doesn't work.
Yeah, I think your
But
connection's just too unstable. But
no, I worked out why we may have had the crash last week.
right,
The hard drive filled up on
yeah,
my computer
yeah,
because what we record with was sending the file to the wrong location.
yeah.
I changed all that.
Mm-hmm.
I cleared up the hard drive.
Yeah.
Haven't had any issues since. Did the test recording for this. Still going to the same place.
Yeah, right.
So I'm just going to have to be more vigilant.
Yeah.
With what we're doing, I
Yeah.
think. But on that note, don't forget to jump into the links. Go like, follow, subscribe across our socials, YouTube channel. If you want to support us here at the podcast, you can at Patreon/Switched On Squads. Squads or squad? Squad.
Squad. Yeah.
Yeah, squad. And yeah, don't forget, every Friday night from 8 o'clock, we are live on Twitch at Brennanhoof and at Pomster Gaming, or Pomster_gaming, where we play FIFA. You can come join us. We'll play pro clubs, score some goals. Don't forget, it's only a couple more weeks, and we are going to be off to FC24, which I cannot wait for. But until then, we've got to get me to 500 goals. Or about 500.
You're already at 500. You're going for 600.
Oh, jeez. We're going for 600 goals. Come on, people. Come and help me get to 600 goals. Yeah. So until then, we will see you later.
Catch you
Adios.
later, guys.